Hello, my name is Reinhild Niebuhr. I'm the founder of the Young Africa Vision. Welcome to this episode of Young Africa Today. In this episode, I want to talk about my favorite Young Africa instrument, and that is called the Young Africa Rewards. Now, why is this my favorite? Because I really believe that this particular idea came straight from heaven into my brain one night many years ago, when I was trying to think about ways in which we can help to improve the way in which donor funding, grant funding, flows into Africa. I have many years of experience in the development sector, in Southern Africa in particular, but I've also visited other parts of Africa. And one of the things that's very clear is that it's often very difficult for grant makers and donors to prove any real impact of the many millions, even billions of dollars of money that have flown into Africa as grants over, in the last century, especially in the last 50 years. And so I was thinking, how are we going to improve the impact of grant money? And one of the things I realized is that free money, free money is like a drug. I was raising funds for an organization for many years, and in fact, I always say that I didn't actually raise funds. God would send money. I would work very hard to write proposals that were really successful. And then out of the blue, suddenly God would, some donor would send money, and I couldn't claim any credit for it. So I just know that God works in mysterious ways, and I just say thank you, Daddy in heaven, in the name of your Son Jesus Christ, for everything that you have done to help make sure and sustain, help make sure that work would continue and that could sustain the scholarship fund that this organization that I was responsible for, and I'm still responsible for, needed. But through my consulting work in the first half of, from 2000, well, actually from the late 1999 until 2008, during this period, I really saw a lot of money going into communities where in the end there was very little impact, and it was heartbreaking. And so I had started really understanding that we need to invest in people. We need to invest in the capacity of people. And one of the things that a major grant-making organizations that I was working for at the time as a consultant actually did was invest in people. They provided scholarships to many people who later on became leaders in government. So it was quite amazing, because I met these people when they were already a minister of something in one or other Southern African country, or when they were already leading a very important institution, or being, playing an important role at one of our universities. And this really made a lot of sense to me, is to just simply invest in people, and then let people shape their own life, not to try and develop things on behalf of communities, but to help people in communities to develop themselves and create enabling opportunities so that they can build sustainable livelihoods. And as they do that, they can build the houses they want, they can buy the houses they want, they can build the businesses they want. And of course, one can help to make these things easier and more streamlined, so that no one has to reinvent the wheel. But ultimately, I've found that the secret is investing in people. And so when I started thinking about training and building the capacity of youth, I also thought about the fact that it's incredibly important to help young people have an opportunity to learn what it means to work. I have worked with a lot of young people who just simply have never had any exposure to a workplace. And many companies don't have the time to manage a young person who has not learned very basic behavioral skills, very basic attitudes that are needed to be able to be effective as an employee. And so I really feel that it's very important to give young people an opportunity to become an intern, in the same way that I was an intern at a newspaper in Germany, which really helped me to understand how an office works, and helped me to understand the basic infrastructure of any business, what are the departments involved, the accounting department, the human resources department, things that I had no idea about and that nobody at university had taught me. I was studying languages and history, so there was no real course for anyone to teach me about organizational structure in a company. And so I was thinking, how are we going to help support organizations that actually can make the time to mentor and that have a passion to mentor young people to become hosts for interns. And these are usually non-profit organizations that actually are not so much profit-driven, because for a profit-driven entity it's very difficult to invest in creating a job or an internship for a young person who doesn't know how to behave. While a non-profit organization is really, that is youth, that's youth-focused and that wants to develop young people, generally is led by people who love young people and who would love to mentor them and develop them and to get a joy and whose objective it is to actually develop the capacity of this young person. And so I was thinking, how are we going to help organizations to create internships so that they as an organization themselves can actually benefit from having, building their capacity in offering these internships. And that is where the Young Africa Rewards program really started. And Young Africa Rewards is a system that actually makes use of digital technology to offer a reward to a young intern who is providing a service and completing a task at a non-profit organization anywhere across Africa, which forms part of the network that works together on the Young Africa vision. And so the important thing that I also realized, and this is from own experience in terms of creating internships for young unemployed youth, is that you will find some young people who are just automatically driven and more hardworking, and then you will find the freeloaders that will just hang around and just sit out their time and wait for the internship wage at the end of the month. Now, for me, it's very important that we need to understand that there's a relationship between effort and reward. If you put in effort, you get a reward. If you put in less effort, you get less of a reward. If you put in more effort, you get more of a reward. These are basic principles of economy. And this is basically something that I want the students that are registered for the Leadership and Entrepreneurship program at the Academy for Young Africa to learn. And so these are the students that are actually going to require internships to learn the practical side and to implement, to express these skills in a practical way. And in doing so, are able to build the capacity of non-profit organizations in their community. And this is where then the whole idea of the Young Africa Rewards program came in. There's another key thought that makes up the system and the thinking, the rationale behind the Young Africa Rewards program. And that is that when we are young, many people who are older, but usually when we are older, we've learned to manage our emotions. But when we are young, we are very much emotion driven. And we haven't learned in general to manage our emotions very well. And we still care a lot about what other people think, and especially we care about what our boyfriend or our girlfriend or our peer group thinks of us. And so we may often spend money on things that are not critical because we want to impress somebody. And so, or very often we may have developed a bad behavior like drinking or smoking or using drugs. And whatever resource we get, we want to apply towards buying that thing that we are hooked on. And so we have to think about how are we going to help young people not to be emotion-driven or addiction-driven, but to actually think for a moment before they start spending their money. And that is why I felt that it would be very, very helpful to, instead of rewarding young people who are completing internships with cash, to reward them with points that are translated into vouchers, and that these vouchers may then be applied to very specific products and services that can support career development or fulfill also meet basic human needs. And this is a concept that I actually thought about in the late 90s already. And I was very excited in 1998 when there was a job summit called for by the president at the time. At the time we had Thabo Mbeki was our president of South Africa, and he had called for a national job summit, and members of governments tasked with rolling out this job summit were traveling from province to province, inviting people to have their say about how we should create jobs in South Africa. And so I decided to present my community reward system as an idea in 1998. In October 1998, I presented this idea at the Job Summit in Pretoria, the capital of South Africa. At the time I had just resigned from my position as a communication specialist working for the Department of Communications, with the aim to start focusing my time on youth development. And I wanted to specifically assist young people to help them with their career development. This was my passion, and I really wanted to pursue my passion even at the time. And so, I spoke at this job summit. And after the job summit, after I spoke, I had two people coming to me. One person came, and he was actually employed by the then Greater Pretoria Metropolitan Council. Nowadays it's the Tshwane Metro Council, which is the capital city of South Africa's Metropolitan Council. And he was saying that he really liked this idea that I presented, and that they had some funding and they would like me to pilot my idea, working with 10 youth in the city. Now, 10 is very, very small, but every big thing starts small. So I was very excited that I was given an opportunity to test this with just 10 young people from a disadvantaged area in the Greater Tshwane Metro Council space. And for 2 years I worked with young people, these 10 young people, to test and pilot this concept. I had no technology at the time. Everything had to be recorded by hand. It wasn't possible to really track the tasks of the youth in a very effective manner. There was a lot, I learned a lot from this pilot, because it taught me that keeping track is going to be one of the biggest challenges of actually implementing a Young Africa Rewards system. And so the second person that came to see me was a young guy who became one of my mentees, and who 18 years later contacted me to say thank you, and I'd forgotten him. But he actually had built a very successful career and very successful business, and is now the owner of a television channel. So helping young people and investing just encouraging young people really pays off, even if you don't spend a lot of time. So it's just one of the success stories that I just want to throw in here to say that if you are going to invest in a young person, don't be surprised if that young person one day becomes the president of a country. Don't be surprised if that young person one day invents a solution to a problem no one else had thought about. And so, just as an aside, before I move on to the Young Africa Rewards program, now 8 years later, actually 10 years later, I had resigned. I had moved with my husband to a very rural area, because I'd realized that if I want to make my Young Africa ideas happen, I would need to build some credibility. I would need to work at grassroots level, and I would need to work with some unemployed youth that were really disadvantaged, in the sense that they were living in the very remote rural area, so that nobody said, yeah, this program can work in the city, but it won't work in the rural area. I wanted to prove that my approach to youth development would work anywhere in Africa. And so my husband and I left our house in the city, and we moved to a very rural area. We took on the responsibility of running an NGO, an educational NGO, and I was very, very happy to receive a grant from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation to be able to pilot and test, again, my leadership entrepreneurship program. This time I wasn't able to really implement the Young Africa Reward system, but I was able to introduce a bit of technology, and I was able to introduce a little bit of tracking of activities of youth. And this became, again, a very, very fertile learning ground for me to ultimately implement in 2000, in 2000, 5 years later, when I started working on the software that was needed to manage the Young Africa reward system. So the Young Africa reward system is really a digital currency, a digital currency that is managed in two ways. In the first way, the first thing is that a young person is going to be, who is a student of the Academy for Young Africa, registered on the Leadership and Entrepreneurship Program, is actually given an opportunity to work as an intern, to serve as an intern of a non-profit organization that becomes a partner to host of the Academy for Young Africa, to host interns, students as interns. And the Young Africa Foundation raises funds in order to finance these internships. And it's not a blanket reward, meaning the interns don't all get the same amount of reward. Each reward is task-based, which means that I had to develop software, and I've identified software more than developed it, but I combined two different types of software so that you can actually set tasks, and the supervisor of the interns can approve the completion of the task. And as the task is approved, it has a certain value, and that value is translated into a point or into points relative to the value of the task. And so in this way, interns can earn rewards. So if you are active and if you do all your tasks, you can earn the maximum amount of rewards available for that particular organization, for that particular internship. And if you do less, then you get less. And that is really a way of teaching young people that there's no reward for doing nothing. There's only a reward for doing something well. There's not a reward for doing something half. Maybe you can get a few points, but generally you need to complete a job before you get your points. And then at the end of the month, those points are translated by the Young Africa Foundation through the grants that are raised into a monetary value. And this monetary value is translated, transferred as a voucher, to buy a voucher for you on an online marketplace. This online marketplace is actually part of a software system that I set up. I established a software company called Economies, and I pulled together a whole bunch of software systems to form a platform that can help build businesses across the world, really, and specifically aims at helping small businesses, medium-sized businesses, to bring their business into the digital economy. And so on this platform, businesses and service providers in the town or in the village where the young students are living can can participate in this online marketplace system, and students can then interns can use the vouchers that they have earned through the points to pay for services and products on offer by approved vendors, approved service providers and retailers in their own community. Why is this so important? It really has a triple effect. It means that grant funding from the donor, so if you are a donor, your money that you are donating is going to help build and drive socioeconomic development in three ways. Firstly, you're going to help a young person to get work experience, so that this makes them better able to find work or to understand how business works so they can build a business. Secondly, you are helping a non-profit organization, because part of your funding will be used to finance the non-profit organization for managing the interns and the internships. And of course, having the interns means that this young non-profit organization can expand its activities. So it has more young people as interns who can help to promote whatever work they are doing. Whether this is work in the field of orphan care, whether this is work in the field of home-based care, whether this is work in the field of elder care, whether this is work in the field of providing, running a food kitchen, whether it is, work in terms of delivering food to homes where people are struggling, whether it is providing healthcare services, whether it's providing educational services, whatever you as a non-profit organization are doing, that work can be multiplied through the interns that you can put to good use, doing helpful tasks to make your impacts greater. So the second way in which the grant funding is used is to help increase the capacity of local non-profit organizations. Thirdly, because now the rewards are turned into a voucher system, and these vouchers can be used to pay for products and services at local businesses and local service institutions like training institutions in the area where these youth are based, these interns are based. Some of the work, some of the vouchers can also be used to pay for access to data, can be used to pay for online services that have been pre-approved by the Young Africa Foundation. But generally the idea is to circulate the money locally so that the grant funding that is provided stimulates the local economy. Why is this so important? Firstly, because we're sitting with a situation here in Africa where a lot of the money that is spent on imported products from other regions. And this makes it problematic to try and circulate cash, circulate value locally. So what does it help if we get a grant from America or Europe that pays for something in Africa, and that money is used to pay for some clothes that come from China, for instance? I'm just using that as an example. Ultimately, yes, there's a small transactional fee that stimulates the local economy in Africa, but the bulk of the money moves out, from America via Africa into China. What's the point? If we want to help develop communities in Africa, we need to be strategic about the way we spend the money. We need to be strategic in the same way that there's been a lot of criticism and thinking, especially in Europe, about where do you actually put your money? Do you give it to European social services organizations at the head office that have very high costs, and a lot of the donor money disappears into the administration of the grants? Or do you try to direct the bulk of the money, the grant funding that's collected, to the actual communities that need the money most? And so by carefully selecting the vendors at local community level to ensure that the products that are being sold are locally produced in that country, in particular, or at least in Africa, so that we stimulate local dressmaking, local clothes manufacturing, that we stimulate local food production, that we stimulate local service provision, and that we circulate the money a couple of times in the community instead of just letting it be a channel to flow out again. Also to stimulate spending for small and medium-sized businesses, not just into companies that are on the stock exchanges, that already have, that really kill a lot of local businesses. We want to create and stimulate local businesses. So the Young Africa Rewards funding must be primarily used to stimulate local economy. And in that way, you as a grant maker, as a donor, can get triple bang for your buck. And that is the joy and the beauty of the Young Africa Reward System. The other amazing part of the Young Africa Reward System is that because it's technology based, you as the donor or grant maker can have direct insight into who's getting your money, whom are we paying, whom are we rewarding with the funds that you have donated, so that you can see exactly how much money goes as a reward to whom. And this student that you are then funding to be an intern, we have an app through which you can actually build a relationship with that individual student if you want to. If you want to be an anonymous donor, you can just look at the data from the back end. But it really makes a lot of sense to build relationships and to really understand and cheer on and encourage this young person so that they feel that they really need to express an attitude of gratitude towards you as the grant maker and the donor for funding their personal development through funding the rewards that they get for completing an internship that supports their skills as they learn and study through the Academy for a Young Africa. So technology is just amazing. This technology, and this is one of the things I wanted to just say, tell the story about in the end, you know, the last part of this video, is that in 2002, I wrote a book called Young Africa, Policy Blueprint for a Continent of Youth. At the time, I was a very, very active and very successful communication strategist. As a consultant, I earned a lot of money providing advice to leaders in terms of strategically communicating with the people that they were responsible for or the stakeholders that they needed to deal with. And I was so busy doing this work that I had no time to pursue my heart's passion, which was youth development. I was running to provide communication services. Now, I had also fallen into the trap of having money and then using the money to start spending, you know, on all kinds of things. And so I couldn't stop working. At the time, I just needed to work because I needed to finance all the things that I had burdened myself with. And I needed to provide consulting services. So there was very, very little time, just in my free time, small free time, to help some unemployed youth. And my heart was really to help 200 million already at the time. And so, and also because this was my heart's desire, I believe that God really had planted that seed. The Bible says that God prepares all the good works for us to do. And so God obviously had prepared the Young Africa vision for me because he just put this into my head. I would wake up every night, every morning at about between 3 and 4 in the morning, and I would have this downloading of ideas sparking in my brain about how we can help to develop young people in Africa. And so in 2002, I just couldn't stand it anymore. I really wanted to be able to focus on this youth development work, and I couldn't. And so I decided to actually just sit down one weekend and to write down all these ideas that I'd started scribbling in notebooks and papers when I was on flights, in between meetings, because they were just, you know, brainstorming in my brain every night. And I just felt they are valuable. I have stacks and stacks of notebooks where I was writing down these ideas. And so I thought, look, I'm obviously never going to put these ideas into practice. Let me just put them into a book so that others can read about these ideas and others can put these ideas into practice. So I set myself a target to launch this book at the World Summit on Sustainable Development, which was scheduled to be hosted in Johannesburg in 2002. And it's always good for me to have a deadline so that I know what I'm working towards. And so in June of that year, I sat down one weekend, June, July, probably early July, you know, I always do everything in the last minute. I sat down on a Friday night and I started typing. And Nico, my husband, came to bring me rooibos tea, which is a South African kind of herbal tea. That's very good because it keeps your body alkaline. And carrots for my eyes, so that I would have the ability to work through the night. And I can tell you that weekend I just downloaded all the thoughts that were in my mind into this book. I didn't sleep on Friday night. I worked throughout Saturday. I did sleep a little bit on Saturday night. I continued working on Sunday. I thought that this is my service to humankind. So it's the cow has fallen into the ditch, if you understand the biblical connotation of what I'm saying. And I really, really wanted to help bring these ideas that I believe the Holy Spirit had granted me within my mind into a book form so that it could help society across Africa. And so I was 6 o'clock on Monday morning. I had put the last full stop. I had written the 20 chapters that make up the book, Young Africa, Policy Blueprint for a Continent of Youth. And I felt that I had done my part. God had given me these ideas. I'm an author, so I put them in writing, and now I was going to give them to society in a book. So we launched this book in August 2002, and I was thinking, okay, that's my part. Now I can go on and focus on, making the money I needed to pay for all the things that I had taken responsibility for. But that was not going to happen. My phone never stopped ringing. I had put 300 copies into a South African book chain called Exclusive Books. Those 300 copies sold, and my phone never stopped ringing. I had 2 radio stations asking me to please offer a weekly program for youth. I tried doing one radio interview, and 15 minutes before the radio interview, my client, who was a very hard-working development specialist, phoned me. I missed the interview. It's terrible to miss a radio interview. And I realized that I have no time. All the people were phoning me in order to work with me because they loved the idea so much. And I realized that if God has given you a calling, and mine was clearly to help create an enabling environment for Africa's 200 million unemployed youth, you cannot hand over that calling to other people. You need to maintain ownership of that calling. And it means that you need to get ready. And I realized I had to get ready. And so I stopped selling any books. I kept all the books in my storeroom because I just couldn't handle the phone calls from the people that wanted me to work with them to roll out the vision of the Young Africa outlined in that book. At the time, I also really didn't know how to do all of it, but there is a chapter in that book that describes the rewards. I call it the community reward system. I've changed the name to the Young Africa reward system since then. There are also some other things I describe in that book. And I knew I needed software. I needed software to make these things happen. And I had absolutely no idea of how I was going to get that software. I can just tell you that a year later, I accepted a call to serve on the board of an educational non-profit organization. And 2 years later, my husband resigned from his position, and both of us moved to this rural area so that I could get ready. And Nico, my husband, was just amazing because he really sacrificed his career to support the Young Africa vision. And the 2 of us stayed in this rural area so that I was able to develop further and run the other pilot of the whole leadership and entrepreneurship program. And in 2013, it was clear that our time in that rural area was finished, and I was able to reposition to Pretoria. And through my husband, God introduced me to a software company that helped me take the first steps towards realizing the technological systems needed to enable the total Young Africa vision. And I was able, the company, the software company that I founded, I had prayed for a name for it. And on my birthday in 2013, I received the name Economics, which is about the new economy. And it's about the new green economy. So it's about ecology, it's about economy, and it's about Novics, which is new, economics. And so over the next couple of years, God made it possible for me to first focus on the software systems. And then He introduced me to some amazing people who helped me to unfold the Young Africa vision. Throughout the time that my husband and I lived in this rural area, I would wake up in the night, and I would have another little piece that I believe the Holy Spirit granted me of insight of how to make the Young Africa vision happen. When I wrote the book Young Africa, Policy Blueprint for a Continent of Youth, God had downloaded the what of what needs to happen, what must be done. And in the next 10 years, he downloaded, and I believe the Holy Spirit downloaded the how. And the how is what I've been talking about in these Young Africa Today programs, is unpacking the instruments of how we are going to help 200 million young people in Africa fulfill their God-given potential through 3 ways. Number 1, helping to connect them to understand that God is their Father and that they can restore the relationship to our Creator through His Son, Jesus Christ, with the help of the Holy Spirit, who enables faith. Secondly, through developing the skills, through building the skills and the self-confidence that is needed for any young person to fulfill their potential. And thirdly, to set up the systems that are required to build economic growth, to develop businesses all across Africa that can create sustainable livelihoods for these 200 million young people, so that in not more than 5 to 10 years, we can already move many communities in Africa from a place of scarcity and poverty to a place of abundance and prosperity. Thank you for watching this edition of Young Africa Today. Please visit the website youngafrica.info/rewards to learn more about the Young Africa Reward System and the steps of how it unfolds. And if you are responsible for a non-profit organization anywhere in Africa, please reach out to become a satellite campus of the Academy for Young Africa, or a host of interns of students that are registered for the Leadership and Entrepreneurship program at the Academy for Young Africa. If you are an individual who just feels moved to support this, please make a donation to the Young Africa Foundation using the form field to find out more information on the youngafrica.info/rewards page, so that we can know that your donation must be directed towards supporting one intern on the Leadership and Entrepreneurship program. Finally, if you are an institutional grant maker, if you want to improve the impact of your grant into Africa, please make a grant to the Young Africa Rewards program through the Young Africa Foundation. We offer 100% transparency, 100% accountability through state-of-the-art digital technology with an app on your mobile phone that you can track what's going on with your funding. Thank you for your time. Much love and respect.